Most people don't have a very clear marketing strategy. I think that they are marketing. I think they're doing stuff, but they're not necessarily creating a cohesive plan.
Implementing a strategy 90% and stopping is just as bad as never doing.
Every opportunity that comes that you decide on, you're asking the question, how does this fit the strategy? Does it fit? And if it doesn't, no matter how freaking cool that may look, you can't do it.
Today on the Half a Bubble Out podcast, Catherine and I are going to talk about one of the biggest challenges of business marketing, your strategy. We'll discuss the 5 components of a successful marketing strategy. We'll talk about how a clear plan and timeline will help you leverage your brand and achieve your long-term marketing goals. We'll cover how good project management and tracking your decisions will prevent you from wasting money. And lastly, we'll share how to stick to your marketing plan, eliminate distractions, and overcome shiny object syndrome. So how do you stop sabotaging your own marketing efforts? Let's dive in and find out. Whenever we're running a marketing campaign for us or any of our clients, the thing that seems to be the most important, or it seems to be the biggest challenge to overcome, is how do we keep consistency in the overall marketing plan? And that always breaks down into 2 things about leveraging a brand. And that is, A, do we have a clear message? And B, do we have a clear strategy that we're implementing?
And do we stick to said strategy?
And we talk about clear messaging in another video. And in this video, we're going to talk about what are the 5 things you have to pay attention to make sure that you can leverage your brand enough or to its maximum so that you can use your market. Every dollar you spend, every penny you spend in marketing is well used, and it's moving towards the goal of increasing customer acquisition, increasing your bottom line, and going, we're growing and we have happy customers coming in. Those 5 things are: have a clear and realistic strategy, have a clear timeline and expectations about what it takes to actually implement that. The third, make sure you can track the decisions you made, the progress you're making, and the effect, the benefit of what's going on. Number 4, be relentless about implementing it. And number 5, be relentless that you only do what fits the strategy and that you ignore all of the distractions. And we're going to talk about those 5 things.
Excellent.
Okay. When it comes to leveraging the brand and helping companies be successful in their marketing, we look at these 5 things and we go, how do we help them become the most successful? And what are the biggest challenges, the problems they have in getting distracted? Because most people who come to us, they have a successful business, but they are probably not experts in marketing, or they've known enough marketing to get going, but they're having trouble going to that next place.
Right.
And it's getting in their way. The first thing is having a clear and realistic strategy. What's involved in that, and what have you seen as the power or the problem that people have?
So I think most people don't have a very clear marketing strategy. I think that they are marketing. I think they're doing stuff, but they're not necessarily creating a cohesive plan that says, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Some of the things that we'll continue to flesh out, but what is the impact, right? And does everything that we're doing actually fit into furthering what it is that we're trying to ultimately achieve? Is the messaging consistent? Is it implemented fully? So we have a whole lot of clients that come to us who, when it really comes down to it, they've done a bunch of things part way, right? So there's just pieces that aren't finished. And so that means that those particular marketing efforts are not ultimately going to result in what you want them to. They're not going to ultimately leverage your brand. So that's what we're trying to do, is how do we put together a holistic, big picture? This is the marketing effort. This is what we're trying to achieve. And then we choose tactics that fit that strategy. Most folks seem to go tactical, and they don't think strategic before they just start doing stuff. So that's what we see, I think, mostly when clients come to us, is that kind of a challenge.
What are some of the reasons why you think small business owners, business leaders struggle with understanding a marketing strategy, or thinking they have a strategy that isn't complete, that we look at it and say it's not complete?
I think part of it is because There's so much coming at someone. There's so much coming at an owner, a leader. The technology is changing all the time. There's shiny objects. There's, you know, all the different sort of folks out there that will come and be like, my shiny object is the best shiny object, and you should use this shiny object. And it's the only shiny object you are going to need in your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
So it's very difficult if you aren't learning and growing on a regular basis in marketing. It's difficult to keep the big picture. It's difficult to keep your wits about you when all this stuff is coming at you and you don't have clarity on how to vet one thing from another, right? And if we don't have a clear marketing strategy to know A, if it fits, and B, how do we actually understand if it's working, it can get very, very messy. So there's just a whole bunch of things that having that big picture strategy allows you to evaluate if things are going to fit and how well.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed is that most leaders, and we see this in marketing, but we see this in our leadership development coaching. We see this in the literature that most people are not actually great strategists. They
Right.
haven't been taught strategy. It's either something that you're fairly good at or not. But invariably, if you don't start really learning, all of our leadership hits a cap.
Mhm.
We hit a place where the sayings go, "Oh, you're a 5 employee, a 20 employee, a 50 employee person. You're a $1 million company leader. You're a $10 million company leader. You're a $50 million company leader." And those, or you're not even a $1 million company leader. And it almost gets put on, well, that's just who you are. The reason that happens, I think, often is because most people don't understand how to grow. They want to grow, but they don't know how to grow. They don't have a coach. They don't have a leader. They reading books gets overwhelming, and no, very few books are actually concise in certain areas. So you get in this place where they've done the best they can. They've read some books, they've learned, but they don't understand how to take what they don't know, and they don't know how to take their strategy to the next level. So they think I have a complete strategy because it all makes sense to me in my head.
Right.
Look at what we've done. Look at how successful we've been. And the today's mark is the proof that they to themselves that they can go farther even if they have trouble taking their business to the next level. Because of all those factors, their lack of knowledge of what they don't know, they're not even aware or being taught what a full and complete strategy is.
Mhm.
And in every area of the business, what a strategy is, there are common elements to all strategy. There is, where are you? What resources do you have? And what resources do you put together to move forward to achieve a goal that you want? That's the same in all of it in a strategy. But it's also a lot of nuances and details in that. So we get into this place where we go, is there a way to even know that a detailed plan? How do I put together a detailed plan? Because I wasn't taught to put together a detailed plan. Or I've been successful without a detailed plan,
Mm.
so I can go forward with it. As companies grow, they start to realize that that strategy has weaknesses,
Yeah.
starts to leak. And so I think understanding this first one of having a clear, realistic strategy, realizing that you can actually tighten up your strategy, you can have pieces, and you can define it on a piece of paper, a whiteboard, a flow chart, where you can say, this is our strategy and this is where the pieces are.
Well, and part of it is, every company has to figure out what is your marketing budget and then what are you going to put, where are you going to use it?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a clear strategy, part of what happens is you respond, you react, and you start taking dollars that you're using in one place and being like, well, this is really cool, and you move them to another before this ever had a chance to work.
Right.
So part of good marketing strategy is understanding repetition and consistency and keeping the same thing in front of people over a long period of time, even after you're bored with it, so that it actually ends up in their long-term memory. And if we're not being strategic and we don't understand what we're ultimately trying to achieve, we can shift away from things and then say, oh, well, that didn't work for me. But the reality is you didn't give it long enough, right? So we see that a lot. So having that clear strategy, a clear understanding of what you're trying to achieve is really critical to have long-term success in your marketing plan.
Absolutely. Okay. The second point then is having a clear timeline and expectations for marketing to increase customers and revenue.
Yeah,
Okay. That kind of goes to what you were just saying.
it does.
When we see clients like this is really something that we're doing over and over again, right? Your leaders are busy doing a lot of different things. And if they don't have lots of experience in a specific area, like different channels of marketing, you can be really good at marketing and go into a brand new channel and you're like, okay, what can I expect from it?
Mhm.
How long does it take to season?
Mhm.
And if anybody's wondering, what do I mean by seasoning? Seasoning is that how long does it take to prep and get ready? And actually, how much time do you have to spend with it before it's ready to start yielding?
Yeah.
In some cases, it's 6 to 12 months
Yeah.
of actually doing something consistent in a marketing before it actually starts to generate benefit.
Yeah. And I think so much of the promise out there is for instant ROI, right? And what ends up happening is everything becomes very transactional. And depending on the kind of business you're in, if you want to build your brand, like we've talked about in other podcasts, if you're value based and you want to attract a tribe and you have long term types of things that you want to be doing, and if you have a long term buying cycle, right? You're not selling a widget, you're selling a service or a product that is a significant investment.
Yep.
You have to be in front of people in the same place consistently. And if we aren't doing that kind of branding, then when they're ready to buy, they're not going to remember you. And that is a really hard thing for some leaders to get their brains wrapped around, because the ROI on that isn't fast. And yet the long-term investment pays off dividends. It's just you have to have a longer term, a bigger plan, thinking strategy of what do I need to be doing that is consistent, and then what can I do that has a little bit more fast turnaround. So you have both of those going on.
Absolutely. Which probably leads us into the next one. Make sure you can track the decisions you made, your progress, and its effect. Okay,
Super
so
important.
part of it is good project management that we've seen. And I've started noticing this more and more in the last few years that we're not just talking about the ROI on the benefit, the end result of, yes, we sent out a certain amount of emails, enough people opened them, enough people clicked through, and enough people purchased. We have a few leaders who are really good at asking that question on a regular basis. Some of them remember and ask it within the context of everything else. Some of them ask it all the time. We've seen leaders do this where they ask that answer and they forget about timing. They forget about impact. They forget about decisions that were made. And so they'll say, is it making results yet? No, it's not making results. Or is this something that we're evaluating qualitatively or quantitatively?
Mm.
Well, I think it goes back partially to how do you document and keep track of all the decisions you made, especially as a company grows, a 5 million, $10 million company or more, you've got a lot of pieces and parts moving.
Yeah.
And you can't continue to remember the last conversation you have. You have to have something that's going to jog your memory and keep you like, oh, yeah, we made these decisions. This is where we're going. So that the people who are paying attention can actually draw your attention to it also.
Yeah.
How do you get up to speed fast and how do you remember it? Good project management and good documentation that's not just thorough, but easily to access and digest,
Mhm.
I think is really important, don't
Yeah,
you?
I do. And especially in marketing, I think part of tracking your efforts is actually understanding what the numbers mean when you get a report.
Mm.
It's amazing how messy that can get, right? So I had an experience recently with a client where they had purchased a product, a digital product from someone, and we're looking at the results of that and saying we're very, very happy with the results. And my question was, why are you happy? And they said, "Well, it's showing that we got 8x on our deliverable." And it was like, "No. What it's showing is that there was 8 impressions, which is actually what the company promised you should have is 8 impressions." So all that number is actually telling you is that the company delivered what they said they would. It tells you nothing
About the quality.
about the quality, it tells you nothing about the response, it tells you nothing about the impact of the impressions. So that was just a misunderstanding of what does that number mean, right?
Right.
And because of the way it was displayed on the report, it led them to believe something that wasn't actually what it was saying. So knowing what your numbers are and knowing how to translate them into meaningful data, very critical.
Absolutely. So you've got this knowing how to keep track of everything, knowing how to understand the progress and what the timeline is, knowing its effect leads us into point four to be relentless about implementing it. Once you've got a strategy, a clear strategy, you've documented it well, you know it's based on stuff that is actually works
Mhm.
and is actually appropriate for your product, your market, your service, wherever you are, and your budget. Because there are great strategies that are just not feasible. You can't actually implement the whole strategy if you don't have all the money for it.
Mhm.
And implementing a strategy 90% and stopping is just as bad as never doing it.
Yeah.
And you waste all the money. If you go all the way up to, well, it should take. Yes, we should get to uh, New York from LA on an airplane in 5 hours. At 4 hours and 30 minutes, you say we're not there, so this is a failure. I'm on the wrong one. Turn around and go back to LA. Would would be stupid to anybody. But that's exactly what
Yeah.
happens in marketing and any kind of strategic work. So we're relentless about implementing it. When we say that, what do we mean by that?
So a piece of it is being able to say, I am going to commit to this strategy and stay with it. Right. And part of that is we've got a timeline, we've been realistic, we understand. I'm not going to bail just because it doesn't feel right.
Right.
Right. So that relentless about sticking with it. I've made decisions. We've allocated budget. We've done this. I'm going to stick with it. That's one way of being relentless. I'm not going to just yank the budget around and do different things because that thing looks cooler. So, making those kinds of decisions while also flexing and being able to take advantage of opportunities that come up. How do you, because there's always going to be that. But that relentless commitment is I am going to stick with the plan. I am not just going to pick up the next thing or drop something that doesn't feel good. So be relentless about make a plan and then stick to it. It is not easy. Marketing is tough
Mm,
and investing money in marketing is tough, but if you're going to survive the long haul, you need that strategy and you need to stick to it and stick to the budget.
yeah. And it really is dependent on what your goals are.
Mhm.
Like if you really want to grow your company, if you want to grow at 3% a year, that's a different budget and a different strategy than 10% a year or 20% a year.
Mhm.
If you want to double in 3 years, you're somewhere around 26, 27% a year growth that you've got to produce. It's if you're doubling every 3 years. So
And
if you're
growth costs money.
and growth eats money, growth eats cash.
Yep.
And you have to know that and understand that and have a business plan or a business model that allows for that. And understand the patience of it. So which leads us to our fifth one. Be relentless don't just be relentless about implementing it, be relentless that you only do what fits the strategy, what you've
Mhm.
decided. Don't get sidetracked on other great ideas as you come along just because it seems like it has this amazing promise and you're like, well, let's add this too.
Yeah.
What talk about that? How do we see that?
Yeah. So I see it in two ways. One is making sure that every opportunity that comes that you decide on, you're asking the question, how does this fit the strategy? Does it fit? And if it doesn't, no matter how freaking cool that may look, you can't do it. And maybe it's just not the right time,
Right.
right? So holding back on wanting to do new things that don't actually fit, or that in order to do it you would have to stop something that has been building and working in order to reallocate. So being relentless about asking the question always, how does this fit? And can I actually afford to fit it? Those are really big questions to be asking. Most of the time, people are not coming back to that. Here's my marketing strategy. Does this fit into it?
New ideas and new products always have an onboarding process.
Mhm.
They have a seasoning process.
Yep.
And we haven't talked about seasoning a lot in the last 20 years, but it is definitely when you look back at all of our stuff, that's really a theme, a phase of any marketing plan. I know that when you're buying ads, ads are some of the quickest way to get a return on investment. They have been. With the increase in costs of pricing and the changes that are happening in the internet world, ads are actually becoming way more expensive and harder to become profitable. So
Mhm.
what was true traditionally is way, way, way less true and possibly on its way to becoming not true at all unless some major strategies change. But when you go to do ads, if it's going to be a profitable campaign, you've got the startup and then you've probably got 3 months of testing. If you have clarity on your market, and then you can actually start working and testing the market. So you're getting ads online on a specific platform
Mhm.
that are working. Because ads on Facebook and ads on Instagram operate differently. Ads on YouTube, ads on somewhere else, they operate differently, unique enough, and the audiences are unique enough that you've got to find the fit for that market. Because you can't just take a message and an ad from one platform and just place it on the other platform and hopefully it'll work. People don't always understand that.
Mhm.
They're just like, well, advertising's advertising, isn't it? A good ad's a good ad, isn't it? It's not. So we look at that and we go, okay, so understanding that it's going to take 3 weeks in an ad campaign or 3 months in an ad campaign to actually refine it and test it, you're in a place where you're not making money at all. Then you're starting to make money at 3 months and then you're constantly testing to improve it.
Mhm.
Okay. So we've got this. Be relentless that you only do what fits the strategy, because what happens so often is marketing takes so much time. Everything takes so much time and you become impatient or you make other decisions that actually imply pressure on your in your world in your business. Some of the decisions you made, bad decisions that you didn't anticipate. Some of them should have been thought out more. Some things just happen that are outside of your control and they place pressure and they cause you to go, well, do we abandon the strategy over here or do we add another one that promises to pay off faster?
Right.
The best thing I can advise is that you take those things and if you find something that you really like, put it in what we call the parking lot.
Yep.
Great. That's an idea that when these strategies are working and we've got some growth and we've got some extra money, or we've come to the conclusion that we've done a full test on a strategy and we know that it's not going to work at this time for our product or service in this market, then we can pull it and pull something in from the parking lot. But that decision has to be made.
Mhm.
Or you will continue to sabotage yourself on a regular basis. And we've seen clients that come to us that have done that over and over again. And when they're successful with us, we work with them to help keep on top of those things.
Mhm.
How do we keep track? How do we build a strategy that makes sense? How do we make sure it's clear and complete? How do we make sure that we're choosing ideas that work? How do we make sure that we design it in a way that we can track it and know what we're doing and stay on top of it? And then monitor it and stay relentless to it.
As you said earlier, how do we keep context? Like, let's remember what we did, why we did it, and not second guess and make decisions out of fear or lack or whatever it is that drives those needs to change,
Yeah.
or just because change is more fun than consistency.
Yeah, and some
Because
people are just addicted to change, and
so
it's
true.
really difficult on the business and all the different parts of the business.
Yeah.
All right, so those are the 5 different aspects. We do all this to leverage our brand and grow our company so that we have the opportunities that we're looking for and gaining more customers and more revenue. It's these 5 things that are critical. Building a strategy, making sure that we have a clear timeline and expectations, make sure that we can track all of our decisions and the progress and the outcomes. Make sure we're relentlessly implementing the strategy and we are relentless to avoiding any kind of distractions and adding thing in. Stick with the plan, work the plan, and then we can go from there. Those things are going to help us actually take most advantage of the brand we've created.